Hello, my name is Lily and I'm an aspiring artist, and this is my winter edition of my artist diary. So I know a lot of the art on here is very subpar, but that's the whole point. Now, hopefully, as you see me practice, you are inspired to practice and you can see the major mistakes and goofs of my art. And maybe we won't feel so alone. With that being said, let's get started. So, this is my pretty much first piece that I decided to include in the diary. It was technically made in December, but I decided to include it for time's sake. This was a very half-assed approach, I would say. This is an isometric view of the bedroom of the main character, who is a monk in the abandoned Ellora caves of India. I'm a huge history buff, so I'm sorry if you can't keep up with the history, but I'll try to explain it as best as I can. But yeah, as you can see, I don't really know about textures at this point, and the painting's kind of awful. I just depended on a bunch of texture brushes I think would have helped me, and like adding brown to everything to make it look musty, but that didn't really work out. As you can see, the perspective's kind of awful, the line art's very messy and uncontrolled. I didn't really know how to add depth to anything, and hopefully this improves through the future. The next piece is more of a cinematic piece of the Ellora caves. This was made about a month later, as you can see in the date below. So I wasn't really thinking of this as part of the project, because at that point I gave up on the project. But with this, I was hoping to practice some perspective in some bigger scenes, as after a couple months after my CGMA class, I kind of stopped trying to challenge myself in perspective, and so I thought I should probably get back on it. Now with this piece, the perspective's alright. It works. The most devastating part of the piece is definitely the texture work, the line art, and the composition. The composition gave me a lot of trouble because there was a lot of repetition with the columns. And it just made it so boring, and to me this just looks really cramped. But I didn't want to give up historical accuracy to make a cool design, which I think was my biggest mistake. I think I should be able to change the design of these caves in order to fit my story, not the other way around. That's a big hurdle I still have trouble with, so hopefully I can overcome that. But yeah, the line art's very basic. It's all black and white, which makes it really hard on the eyes to look at, and I clearly didn't know anything about sketching at all. Look at it, I don't know which way planes are going, scaling's off, I don't know how to transition between object to object, meaning like the cracks and the little debris is all I had in my visual library to make it seem like all of this fit in one piece. Now you'll see I have a lot of trouble making things seem like they belong with Unity. I can draw things fine on their own, but when I bring them all together in a piece, all of it looks so separate. So that's my main goal this year, to learn how to sketch with Unity and contrast, and then maybe eventually learn how to paint. Now, this is one of my painting attempts. I tried to learn how to paint a wood texture. As you can see, I think it looks pretty okay. I think it looks like wood. I did an exercise where you paint it with a reference, then you try to replicate the same log without a reference to see how much you actually learned. There's a lot of information that we lose just by not having an image to look at. And as you can see, the logs are very different things. So what I take away from this exercise is I need to go slower. I need to capture the colors and the unique characteristics of the reference I'm studying and try to memorize it. So the next time I paint it, which is almost immediately, I should be able to memorize that. Here I feel like I just relied on my other paintings of logs or even just symbols to inform my painting when I was trying to study that reference. So purpose is important in studying, I feel. On the right, you can see that I applied light and color, meaning different moods, different times of day, to my log. I think those came out pretty alright. I primarily used painting masks on Photoshop. If you do not know how to do that, I am sorry, because I barely know how to either. So this is a learning process for everybody. So then I tried to apply it, all my knowledge about wood, and I tried to reskin an object per se. And I don't think it came out very well. I think the wood overall came out too saturated, and the shadows look pretty flat. The occlusion light is alright, but this doesn't look like it was carved out of wood. It looks like it was carved out of stone and painted with a wood texture, and that's not what I wanted. So hopefully next time I should learn some carpentry techniques to make it, or add some wood chipping to make it look like it was carved out of wood and not carved out of marble or stone, which is my biggest mistake here. And overall, my understanding of form still isn't strong, and that's, again, just I should study more form in painting overall. This was some of my sandstone studies. This one from reference, this one also from reference, and this one was my application. So, this reference was from Minecraft. I thought it would be a good idea to take something interpreted by a media, such as Minecraft, and try to study it. I don't think it came out too well, mainly because Minecraft is a 16-bit game, I believe, or 8-bit game. But painting is not. So I should have realized that. Overall, I think I could have just done a better job when it comes to capturing the texture, or I could have not started with a reference from Minecraft. I should have started with a real life study like this. And even then, the real life study, is a little bit too bright. I think I relied too much on saturation, and it made everything look unsaturated. Learning to control where I put my contrast is a key part in painting, and I don't think I've reached that point yet. But what I do like about it is that I was able to take that information and still be able to paint a somewhat decent looking rock thing at the end of it with my application. Now, this isn't the perfect red sandstone, but I think it suffices. I definitely should work on accounting for reflected light and skylight, and overall just basic form and how holes are affected on different types of surfaces. But this is alright. I don't hate it. I don't like it either. Now, this is just stuff from my foundation sketching class. From this point on, I didn't really do any digital art. All I did was basically this class. Granted, it did give me 8 to 10 hours of homework a week. So keep that in mind. I think I really leveled up from this class, and hopefully you'll see the difference in the later forms of this video. Some ellipses, some curves. You can see I had a lot of trouble hitting these curves in a natural way. And my intuitive perspective was just falling apart at this point. I knew I had to level up my draftsmanship then, because every one of my classmates was absolutely 100 times better than me. I just knew I had to catch up. It wasn't bad at all. I think it's really good to have some competition in the class. Here was just some textures. I believe this was a outside activity that we all did. For our first exercise, I think it's alright. I think I reached too far in doing difficult textures like a jacket that's on the second column, third from the top. It just doesn't look like a jacket. I tried to capture where one of the seams are. Didn't work very well. We were supposed to capture textures from a from a from a distance and from up really close. As you can see, I think I'm a little better at doing it from afar, mainly because that's big picture and I like big picture things. But when it comes down to the nitty gritty, such as the fire sticks in column 1, fourth from the top, it just didn't really work out very well, and it looked like chicken scratch to me. Overall, though, this is a very valuable exercise that I know both Peter Han and my instructor, Sori Kim, have advocated forever. So I would definitely recommend this exercise. Just some more and some more. So, yeah, as you can see, there's just a lot of drawing. Not exactly the most exciting things, not epic castles or animals or people even. It's just very, very basic line exercises. It's very infuriating at first, actually, because one, it was a really nice sketchbook I was drawing in, so I was like thinking I was wasting my money by drawing these random lines in such a perfect, beautiful sketchbook. But at the end of the day, it's really valuable, and I believe these exercises are a key part in investing yourself as an artist. Yeah, so here's some more modifying primitives, like we're curving cylinders and adding things on top of each other. I think I did an alright job. At this point, I was trying to learn about line weight and when to add line weight to things, such as when they're closer to the viewer or when you want to put emphasis on them. I still had a lot of trouble landing my ellipses, and I still struggle with that today. You'll see that when I show you my cars from this class. But I think overall, I was able to draw them a lot better now. Some more abstract bean boys. These are one of my favorite exercises. Is where you just draw a random blob and you find the center line and draw the contours. My biggest mistake here was adding too many contours. My instructor said that you only need to add a contour when there's a major change in the topography of the bean. But I clearly went too far, I think. It was still a lot of fun to do these, and now I definitely know not to overdo it so much. This is the homework, textures and gradients. I took things from my house and I took some photos from the internet and I tried to apply them to what we learned in class. So here's some baskets, a brick wall. You can see me making notes. So in the denim jacket, you can see, or maybe you can't read it. It says don't veil crosshatch. What I meant by that is to not just draw the texture and add a bunch of cross-hatching on top, but rather work the cross-hatching into your drawing. Because if you do a veil, it looks very messy and unplanned. And that's definitely something I need to work on. I think I chose also very difficult textures to indicate just by ink, because leather and chainmail and trees, they're very hard to indicate, I think, at such a close angle with just ink again. But maybe that's just my incompetency, I don't know. Oh, sorry. I keep going back. But another note I wrote for myself on the bottom you see is push darks. I am very scared of contrast, and I think you guys will learn that I am really scared of adding too much contrast in my paintings or drawings, therefore not adding any at all. And that's a huge issue, and I'm still working through it, so just bear with me. Some surfacing where we apply those textures to the same to some primitives. I see a jacket, I did a chainmail cube, I did a trypophobic sphere. I'm sorry if it triggers some of you. I did not think I would trigger someone's trypophobia through an art video, but I'm sorry in advance. Let's see. Some more warm-ups and modifying primitives. Yeah, it's just very, very boring stuff so far, but I promise it will pick up. So here's just some more stuff from the class. I'm just gonna flip through these fairly quickly because I don't think you guys need to see all this. And maybe you do, but I'm just showing these to kind of illustrate how much mileage you really need. Like 10 pages of fabric and everything. It was an insane amount of work. These were a lot. Like the rock formations, my favorite one was the waterfall and rocks. But I learned how to utilize line weight and the direction of my cross hatching to indicate plane changes, meaning if the rock faces go down or up. I'm really bad at explaining things, I'm sorry. But hopefully you see what I mean. I use different types of rocks, like the stalagmites in the caves. I found them to have really interesting formations and just random rocks in nature and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I didn't go outside a lot for this exercise, which I feel like I should have. But the ends justify the means, and overall, I think the rocks are pretty alright. Yeah. Here was like a thematic type of redesign in a way where you're supposed to take the rocks or anything that you're drawing and apply them to a keyword. For me, I chose sword. I wish I didn't choose this word because it was difficult for me to convert rocks in a way that will make them look like a sword. All I had in my library was the stalagmites I earlier drew. And they overall looked pretty flat compared to my previous studies where I showed more of a hierarchy in how they group together. So I wish I kind of learned from myself there. But they don't really look like swords, I don't think. So here are some fabrics studies. We're studying drapery. This class did move really fast for me. I've never been in such a fast-paced drawing environment before, but this was definitely an awesome type of fast. I don't think I fell too much behind. I felt like I had to be engaged every second, otherwise I would just fall behind. But yeah, these are some drawings at the Arboretum when we went there. And we focused mainly on the idea of perspective and how leaves change and how they fold over each other in perspective. I wish I challenged myself more to study more of that, but I chose safer point of views, and I kind of wish I didn't do that. Oh, this was a cactus. I really enjoyed drawing, and I think it's my favorite drawing from the class still. It was just such an interesting looking cactus. I don't know if we'll ever see it, but it was not like your normal cactus. It was a very round boy. I'm not sure how I can describe it other than just having you look at this picture, but there were not a lot of spikes on it. It just looked like a bunch of chubby little sausage fingers on a cactus. It's really cool. And here are some more spiky little trees and a scale drawing with a human on it. These were huge, guys. I looked up and they still filled my point of view. It was really cool. I'm guessing they had these plants had spikes in between the leaves, and I don't know if this was some type of evolution technique, but I believe, I'm talking out of my butt here, so I don't know if this is true, but I think they had spikes on it so that herbivores, when they ate them, could get hurt by the spikes, and therefore the herbivores would leave it alone and not kill the plant. I think that was pretty smart of the plant, if I do say so myself. Yeah, here's some corn. A really bad willow tree. I was having fun with some ink wash, and I think I got too carried away with it. So, yeah, just some more plants and stuff. As you can see, I think I just discovered the ink washing and I got a little too carried away. Next time I should rely more on cross hatching, as that was the intent of this class. I shouldn't use too much ink washing. You can see I broke it down into basic shapes, the curvature of the object, and some lighting. I copied this from a reference, so these were particularly pretty easy, but I feel like in real life this would be a lot more challenging to break it down in such ways. As you can see, I was kind of ashamed of some plant drawings. Some of them were just so awful, I never want to see the light of day again. And I forgot to take off the sticky note for you guys when I scanned this in, so I'm sorry you're never going to see that drawing. But as you can see, it looks like I half-assed the page. And mainly because I maybe was distracted by watching Netflix, but I would definitely never do that again. So I'm really bad at multitasking, which is why I always recommend to draw undisturbed. At most, I would listen to music or a podcast, but never really videos for me to watch. Yeah. Here's some more drawings. As you can see, I was really distracted again because the perspective of the tree was just really wonky. If I could draw it over it for you guys, it would be awful. So, yeah. I think you guys can see it. It just looks off. And I think to any normal person, it would just look off. I just had a lot of trouble filling the page, I think. And that's why I started drawing all these random little marks. But next time I should realize it's not about that, it's about the quality and not exactly making the page look good. Because at the end, we had to just scan them all into Photoshop and arrange them in a nice way anyway. I shouldn't have worried so much about that. Some more drawings. I really like this plant because I felt like I got the form of them particularly more accurate than the others. This was from my front yard. It was pretty cool plants. I'm not sure what they're called. More potted plants. I feel like I should have used a marker to indicate the shadows because the cross hatching was overall too messy. And again, I think I was just trying to fill the page with BS, so you can see a bunch of random marks that didn't really matter. It didn't really help me study the plant. More awful lilies. So any flowers with a deep drop to where their pollen is and everything, I had a lot of trouble with it. Oh god, these are awful. I definitely depended on the ink wash too much, but at least I know now not to do that for sure. God, please don't do that. So this was a plant redesign we had to do for class. I was just thinking of a cactus flower that was nocturnal, and when it bloomed, if it gathered enough rain, it would look very pretty. Yay, it was super valuable in my little fantasy world. I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool, but that's not really important to this class. On week 4, we moved on to skeleton structure, breaking down different types of skulls and bones. Yeah, it's a lot. You can see that I was kind of struggling keeping up in this when the instructor was breaking it down, mainly because it was just a lot for me to process. I'm not used to drawing animals or like this anyway. Here we were just learning how to render or continue to block out these forms on a full skeleton, as the next week we would go to the Natural History Museum. I'm sorry, my cat is meowing if you can hear that. But yeah, these are some skulls and side studies, and I repeated the same reference, if you remember from the tree, of me drawing with a reference, taking off the reference, then trying to replicate the skull without looking at the reference, and I did it in different points of view. For this, I used sketchfab.com, which is a site where you can look up these animal skulls that are 3D print friendly, by the way, from these different museums and universities who are studying these skulls. I think it was so cool because you can rotate them 360 degrees and draw them whatever angle you want. Anyway, enough of me geeking out. This exercise showed I did not retain as much information as I thought I could. The proportions look completely off, and I wish I just spent more time studying the original reference and the proportions and just maybe using logic as to why things look that way. Like for a cave bear, of course, its jaw would be long and wide and would have a lot of teeth in it, so it could, hunt and eat. Unfortunately, my brain doesn't really work when I draw, and that's something I'm trying to work on. Here's some more exercises, the same exercise, but with a hippo skull. I think I retained this a little better. I think the end result of the three-quarter view of the hippo looks a little bit more like the cave bear on the cranium and where the eyes are. But I think I got that jaw part kind of accurate. Not as accurate as the original reference, but I think you can get the point from looking at it. Good thing nobody really knows what a hippo skull looks like, so they can't really critique me on that. Unless you're someone who works in a museum, then I'm sorry. But here's some more skeleton studies. Oh, this was a skeleton redesign of Charizard, and we were just supposed to break it down. It was an exercise to help us break down the functions of each bone and apply it to something not completely existing in real life. Yeah. I did it again with Cat Dog. I never watched the cartoon, but I heard it's good, and I thought the characters were funny, so I decided to experiment with how they would look like. Apparently they have no pelvis, which maybe was a mistake on my end, but I don't think I ever saw them pee or anything, so I figured they didn't need it. You can see that at this point, I think my line weight control is getting a lot better. I'm trying to show where things overlap each other. I'm using thin pens when I need to just block something in really fast. I think it's just overall improving at this point in time. These are some notes from the demo at the Natural History Museum. And yeah, I feel like my notes are really messy. I don't know if you guys can even read them, but I did learn a lot from just watching someone draw. I think that's a really underrated part. I feel like we shouldn't be watching so many 10-minute videos on how to draw eyes, but maybe watch a 3-hour video of someone drawing an eye, mainly silent, from a model. But I know not everyone has that time. So here are some images that I drew from life at the Natural History Museum. These were huge skeletons. I never knew dinosaurs were so big. I know it sounds kind of dumb considering we all know dinosaurs are huge, but I think seeing them in person really emphasizes that fact. Then we moved on to animals and drawing them, with the muscles and skin, and I'm not so proud of these guys because they just lack a lot of structure. And obviously, I did not know the skeletal structure of this guy, so he just looks like a watermelon. And all my guys' and girls' faces have that poker face for animals. But I am particularly proud of this one because I feel like I represented the volume of this antelope, I believe, correctly. And I added some contours to make sure I understood the structure of it. I think it went pretty alright. I'm not too embarrassed of this one. This one was okay. Now, if you asked me to draw this from imagination, I probably couldn't do it, which is my biggest mistake. If there's one thing to take away from this video, it's to study so you can draw this stuff from imagination. If you're drawing this to copy, it's useless. You might as well just not draw it in the first place. So here's some rabbits. It's from sorry for the messy marks. It was trying to account for the marker work I did before inking it in, and it did not go well. So this homework might be a little messy. You can see my horse. So it didn't look too bad, but I'm not really a horse girl, so I don't know. A moose, I messed up the leg way too many times, and the markers just kind of ruined the page. Here was a bird. It's one of my worst drawings from this week, mainly because I didn't know how to portray depth in a bird skull. It was hard to make it look like the eye belonged in a feather covered creature. I didn't really study anything like this up to this point, so it didn't really go so well. Here's a blue jay, I believe, and he's kind of cute, but I don't think the wing anatomy was accurate. Yeah, as you can see, birds are not my strong suit, so I hope I can straighten that before I take FND2, which is advanced sketching. Here are some fish: mud skippers, crabs, crustaceans, lizards, pangolins, etc. You can see I was still using the ref, no ref exercises from both the skulls and the wood, as you've seen before. I think it's a really effective way of studying an animal in a particular pose, but I don't think it's necessarily good for understanding the anatomy of an animal, unless I was studying the diagram of the anatomy. But here I was just studying one pose of one animal. I feel like was not as effective as I could have made it. Some koalas. I love koalas. My favorite animal. And here's a food chain. I thought this was a fun exercise to draw multiple animals on one page. And it's good to know the function of these food chains. So maybe when you're designing an ecological system or a food chain, food web, this would be really helpful. I really like the squid on the bottom. I feel like I portrayed its form correctly. It looks really cute. I think the fish look really symbolic. I didn't indicate the scales as well as I thought I could. And they look like they're from a cartoon, which is not necessarily bad, but for my purposes, not very representative of them in real life. Some notes. At this point, we're trying to transition from organics to hard surface, and my teacher thought bugs and insects were a great way to do it, and I agree, because you have to know some perspective in order to calculate their legs, and they're a lot. It's a lot harder to get away with a bad drawing for insects, I believe. If you mess up on the amount of limbs a bug has, you can tell, but if you mess up like one or two things about a rhino, I don't think anyone would really know this. Here's a weevil. If you don't know what those are, good for you, but they're super cute, but they're like super pests, really. I think I covered this guy well. I don't think his side studies, as you can see in the top left, are entirely accurate, but I like the final image of this guy. I was trying to figure out how to render shiny bugs, true bugs, like beetles and stuff, and that didn't really work out well with the marker and the ink. I just have a lot of trouble with textures, guys. I don't know if you can tell, but I think it's pretty obvious here. After FND1, hopefully I can have some time to study some textures and stuff like that. And maybe during FND2 as well. Yeah. Here's a little scorpion guy. I thought he was cute. I didn't know where exactly his head was, so I kind of improvised it. He looks cute, but I don't think it was very accurate of me. Again, here I'm trying to render out the beetles and where they work out well. Here's some cars. We're trying to transition to cars at this point. I was trying to study the side views and how many wheels across they were. That's really important for cars. I think this is the time where my ellipses became really apparent, because it was clear I did not know how to draw these guys, or I couldn't with my hand and everything. I was trying to practice here on this page, maybe to fill up some room. I really didn't like drawing cars this week, and rendering them was an awful nightmare because they're chrome, and it just wasn't a good week for me. Got into some vehicles that weren't cars, thank God, and trains and bicycles. I had a lot of trouble with the bicycles, mainly because they're 90% ellipses, but I think this was probably the most valuable vehicle to draw for me, because I got a lot of practice. I think after this page I was pretty okay at drawing ellipses. Did some airplanes because I was running out of ideas to draw. Yeah, I don't know. Overall, I would say to put more emphasis on learning how to draw ellipses. Some of them are really bad and off here. And I think working in line art is really important, especially with the bikes. There are a million things going every which way, and it was really hard for me to track where exactly they were going. Here's just some random aeronautical stuff I found on Pinterest. I know, I was running out of ideas, guys. I didn't know what else to draw. But I felt like the ellipses on here were okay. The texture work, of course, not the best, but I feel like I was getting a hang of the portraying depth with line art part of drawing. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Some basic tank gesture studies, just trying to find out how exactly they kind of looked like when I broke them down. And here was a more detailed study of it with shadows and everything. I wish I portrayed its perspective a little better. As you can see, the ellipses are kind of off. Maybe to the untrained eye, they look okay, but not perfect for sure. But at this point, I think blacking out the shadow was particularly easy because the reference had it. But if I had to do this from imagination, maybe not. And I did not portray the texture well on here again, as I was saying. More gesture studies. I kind of jumped around in this homework a little bit. Here's more military vehicles. You can see that my ellipse is still not the best. Yeah. I was just adding random junk on these vehicles, and maybe I should have slowed down to learn what these guys actually did. But, you know, I was lazy, and laziness is the biggest sin, so don't. Yeah. I recommend you guys study the function of all these vehicles. So here's a Hummer. I think that's what they're called, a Hummer, right? Pretty cool. Some of the perspective was off here, but it's alright. As you see, the side study totally god awful compared to the actual render of it. Yeah, for sure. I need to work on those ellipses. Airplanes. Oh yeah, this week we're focusing on airplanes. And I thought, wow, I drew these 1 week before. I think I have a head start. No, I was completely wrong because the perspective on nailing these and the side proportions, so hard because there's so many variants of them and I had to learn what made them aerodynamic. Well, I didn't have to, but it was recommended so you know how to construct them from imagination. That's the point of this class, and I feel like I'm getting to that point where I can recall some things from imagination. Granted, these were easier planes to draw because they were just so cylindrical and so quote unquote primitive in terms of their shapes. So I decided to venture towards more modern stuff with jets and things that look like they belong in Star Wars. I thought they were pretty cool. My instructor said there were a lot of perspective issues. I should have blocked a lot of these guys in perspective before I did them. I agree. A lot of these guys, they're kind of wonky. I didn't really replicate the plane wings on each side well. But to the untrained eye, I think these look alright. Alright, nearing the end of this class. At this point, we're just finishing up lectures that we didn't necessarily touch on before. These are just my last pages of airplanes. And yeah, that's all the drawing we did for this specific class. I really enjoyed the class. I highly recommend it for anyone who can come down here to Burbank. I was extremely lucky to have won the scholarship for this class, and I continue to be lucky because I won the scholarship for F&D too. I'm just so lucky. I'm so grateful. And I promise not to squander the opportunity. Overall, this class, I think, really helped me with traditional draftsmanship, confidence, just about everything drawing-wise. Next time I should probably focus more on rendering textures believably, choosing textures that aren't too hard to render with just ink, etc. Yeah, so this was my first art piece coming out of the class. I decided to illustrate some layout designs or background designs based on the novel Island of Sea Women. It's takes place on Jeju Island, off the coast of South Korea. And they have a beautiful culture of the women sea divers. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, so I'm not going to try. But these are some background designs. Now, as you can see, these are a lot better in terms of just composition. I think they're not as generic. I was a lot more explorative with my compositions and perspective. It doesn't look as generic, I think. I still think I need a lot of work when it comes to set design, because I never been on a fishing boat, and I never really been on a dock like this, or a really busy marketplace, or a farm. Yes, I'm a city girl. I am completely uncultured. But I do plan to research these things. I try my best to research these things, but unfortunately, Jeju is a very, in terms of research, it's a very empty field, unfortunately. So I tried my best to extrapolate what I could. This is what I came up with. You can see from just all that, I think I really did improve. You compare this to my Elora case, which I will include right now. Yeah, so I think my control of line art's a lot better. I'm able to not depend on such a thick line weight. Maybe here was a lazier piece. I wish I spent more time on it. But look how much that hurts the eyes. Don't you agree that the gray is a lot easier, I think? I tried to replicate the style of Kipo, the Age of Wonder Beasts, and their show. I think their 2D layouts were amazing. I'm mainly inspired by Nikita Chan. She's awesome. I trying to replicate their style. So you can probably see a lot of that in the wildlife, but other than that, it's kind of hard considering Kipo is a post-apocalyptic show, but the Island Sea Woman is mainly just a very historical fiction, not really apocalyptic or modern much in any way. But I tried. I tried to convert the style whenever I could, and I think I did all right. I think this could belong Kipo. I had a sharp learning curve here. This was my first piece. You can see the line art was dark and thick, just like the Elora Caves one. But I had a sharp learning curve as I analyzed the art style with a couple of my friends, and I got a lot of pointers out of it. And here we are. I think it progressively gets a little lighter. I don't know if this is too light, but I feel like it represents the Kipo style a lot more. Yeah, so this is what I'm working on now. I will continue to work on this project until I finish all the layouts I have planned, and I will probably include it in my spring edition of Diary of an Artist 2020. Hopefully this video format wasn't too long or boring for you guys. I know it's kind of weird seeing bad art on a progress type of thing. You expect to see really bad art compared to really good art, but I think my growth is a little mediocre in these first 3 months in terms of drawing. I still think it was significant enough to show. Do this. I highly, again, recommend journaling your progress. Maybe not in the same form as mine, but you do you. I would love some feedback on this. If you would like to write me an email or send me a message on Instagram about this journal and any feedback you may give me. My handle's down there. It's very small, so I'll read it to you. It's Lily Jane's Creations on Instagram. So LILYJANES Creations. You can also find me on ArtStation if you want to comment there, where I have full HD versions of my layouts if you'd like to see. But other than that, yeah, that's it. I hope you guys have a great day, and I hope you guys keep improving and practicing after seeing all my horrific art. And the grind don't stop, guys. Alright, see you. Thank you. Bye.